get started. Yeah. So, hi.
Hi.
I wanted to welcome you out this evening. I know some people might be running late, so I wanted to just say hi when we get started. And I just wanted to thank everyone again for all your support. I am in the middle of crafting my October newsletter, and I have a lot of exciting announcements to talk to the community about. The one thing I'm really excited about, what you guys are here, is that we have a part-time PE teacher that's starting tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that, and that'll be really fun to have him around. His name's Robert River, and I'll be announcing in the newsletter. I've already had Kenny make sure that he says hello to him tomorrow and welcome him to our King family. And we'll have a lot more exciting events coming up. But I just wanted to welcome everyone here tonight. Thanks for your interest and your engaging and thoughtful questions. And please remember to come out to our PPA coffee, come out to the principal's coffee. I had a great time getting to know people a little bit better at the principal's coffee. And I really look forward to working with you all year. So welcome and thanks for being here. And I'm just going to turn the time over to Antonio Lopez, the regional administrator with the Justice and Cluster, and let him go from here. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, if you can call me anything, that'll be awesome. There are two documents that I want to pass. All right, well, thank you for being here. Can we just get a, hopefully more people will join us. Teachers, how many teachers here? All right, parents. 1, 2. Parent? Yeah. Okay.
And grandparents.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. We have about 2 hours, so we will have plenty of time if you have questions at the end. Some of the things that I have from the last meeting was about that people wanted to know about what other data we had. And so I'm going to go over the other data, explain it. And if I'm going too fast or if it is confusing, stop me so I can explain it a little bit better. So the first document that I want you to look at is this document. And this document is the one that guides the district in terms of the assessments that we have that we give our students. Okay? We have 3 kinds of assessments. The first one that we call a diagnostic assessment. In a diagnostic assessment, this is where we get baseline data to find out where your kids are at. The second type of assessment that we have is the formative assessment. That's the one where we monitor the progress of the students. And I'm going to talk about those assessments. And the last one is what we call the summative assessment, which is the OAKS testing, which is given only once a year. And the OAKS assessment, it goes from grade 3rd through 11?
8 and high school. 11.
3rd through 8 in high school. So for King, we're going to look at 3rd through 8. This assessment is done every year. And Joe explained in the last meeting a little bit about the assessment. And usually the state gives a window for the schools to give that assessment to students. And I think the window opens in November. From November to around May 2019, around that area, right?
Yes, but last year and this year, we do not allow 3 through 8 to test before January.
Okay. So we did not allow 3rd through 8 to test before January. There are some schools that probably tested kids in January. When I was a principal, like if I knew that some kids had a really, that I believe that they will pass, I might test them in January. There are some other students that if I didn't think they will pass, then I would try to, I can look my phone. I would try not to test them, but wait as long as I could, because that time they will have more time in the classroom to get instruction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the window is there, and after the window closes, you cannot test anymore. So there is a big window in there to test. That's the one that we have all this, that we're gonna talk last, okay? I wanna talk the other assessment that school uses to figure out where kids are, and those are what we call the formative assessments. If you look at this, the formative assessment is given 3 times in the year, which is the fall, the winter, and the spring. In the fall, it's given between September 4 and September 27. Then those kids are tested again between January 6 and January 27 to see if they made progress. And then they're tested again in the spring between May 12 and June the 3rd. This is the assessment that teachers use the most to figure out where kids are at, because it's given 3 times during the year. And this is the one that you can monitor if the kids are making progress, or the kids are not making progress, or if the kids are regressing. Okay? So I'm gonna go over the data, what those assessments tell us. There are 2 assessments. One that we call DIBELS, which tests kids' ability to read, letter name, letter sound, blendings. And then the other assessment that is called ECCBMs, which is reading comprehension. The DIBELS assessment goes kinder to 3rd grade only. The ECCBMs goes from 4th through 8th grade. So far, are you with me? Yes?
Yeah.
So I have some examples of this assessment that is given 3 times during the year, right? Remember that it's 2 assessments. If DIBELS is kinder to 3rd grade only, and 4 through 8 is ECCBS. So I'm going to share some of that data with you, and then once we finish with this, then we look at the state data and see if there are comparisons in there. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you look at this, I put the data from 2011 to 2012. If you look at this package in the home page. Okay. This is not the data from this last year that we got the result. This is from the year before. Okay? And I put the data from the winter to the spring, from January to May. So in January, kindergarten, if you look at the winter, in the first column, I'm going to show you how to read this. If you look, let's look at kindergarten. In kindergarten, there were number of students, there were 36 students in the winter, in January. 33 were tested. And how this test describe kids in three groups. If you are a grade level, that's what they call core. Means that you're at grade level. If you have some risk, that means that you're a little bit behind, less than a year. If they call you high risk, then that means that you're really behind more than a year. Okay? So these two tests break that kids into three groups. The ones that are at grade level, the ones that are a little behind, and the ones that are way behind. Okay? So let's look at the data. In kindergarten, there were 36 students. 33 were tested. 20 were low risk, or what we consider that they're core or grade level. Very no risk. They were at grade level. Okay? Which is, out of the 33, if 20 were grade level, that means that 60.6 were grade level. Does that make sense? Are you so far with me? Okay? Now, let's look on the spring. Now we're talking about May. We still have the 33 kids, and 24 were grade level, which means the 4 kids move from low risk and high risk to being at grade level. Does that make sense? That's why you have an increase of 12.1%, because we moved 20 kids from the winter that were at grade level. Now we have 24 by the end of the year that were at grade level. So 4 of the kids that were at low risk or high risk move up.
So low risk means you're a little below?
You're a little, yes, less than a year. If you high risk, it means you're more than a year behind.
I don't think that's accurate. If you're low risk, you're in core.
Yeah, you're grade level.
Oh, so you guys, if you're at low risk, you're in core, right?
Yeah, you're at
You're
grade
at grade
level.
level.
So you're at grade level. What about the high risk?
That's
What-
below grade level.
That's below grade level. Is it a year or more than a year, or what's the?
At least a year.
Okay. It still is the same thing, that we want to have our kids at core or close to core. We don't want to have kids at high risk, because high risk means that they're not making progress. Right? So let's look, for
Well,
example,
the kids call it a little below the core.
in this, how the test called them some risk.
Some risk.
Yeah. And the ones that are really behind is called high risk. So you have your core, some risk, and really high risk. Okay? So let's look, for example, at 8th grade. 6th grade. We have 19 kids in 6th grade. Let's look at the winter from the spring. 19 kids, 17 were tested, 2 were at low risk, which is 11.8%. Now look at the spring. Somehow there was 1 kid less tested. Instead of 17, they have 16. And now 4 kids are low risk, which is 25%. And so they had an increase of 13.2%. Now let's look at the other column, because the other column is the kids that were at high risk. Okay, so let's look again at 6th grade. In the winter, on the other side, from this column to the other side, we're going to look at kids that we are considered high risk. that are really behind. In the winter, 17 were tested. 2 were considered really, really behind, high risk. And then when we tested them again in the spring, in May, we tested, instead of 17, we tested 16 because probably we lost a kid or somewhere else. Now 6 were high risk, which means that we had some kids that were low risk that moved to high risk. They regressed.
They're probably at some risk and dropped down.
Exactly, from some risk that moved to high risk. So these are kids that didn't make progress.
Yeah.
Is there any information that proves that it was the same exact kids being tested from winter to get from winter to spring?
It is the same kids. It is the same group.
In this end of town, we have a transient population that moves, so.
Yeah. That's why you have that in the winter we had 17, and in spring we went down to 16. A kid probably moves to another school or moves somewhere else. Question?
So, what do you consider the kids that aren't listed in the low risk or the high risk?
The low risk is, and teachers jump in, the low risk is that they're close to being at grade level.
Because it says student, in the first sentence, it says students who have low risk or core. And it's for, let's take kindergarten for example. It says that 20 were at low risk in winter. In winter, it says 10 were at high risk. 10 plus 20, 20 is only 30, but 33 kids were tested. What were those 3 kids considered?
So those 3 are some risk, and some risk isn't shown here. So
Okay, so there's a third category that you're not, that
yeah, that we're not seeing.
Okay, I was wondering what happened to those.
Yeah,
Right.
it just takes both ends, both book ends, because the kids in the some risk, either they're gonna move up to no risk, or they're gonna stay there, or they're gonna move down to high risk.
And according to the DIBELS website, low risk actually means that they could be at benchmark or higher. It's just low risk.
Okay.
So what I did, I put the first page is 2 years ago, 2011, 2012, okay? The next page, I put this past year, 2012-13. I put from the fall and the winter, from the start of the year in September, when we tested in the fall, and in the winter. And again, it goes by grade level, and it tells you how they did. Okay? This is, the second page is this past year. When they came in September, let's look at 6th grade. When they came in September of last year, there were 26 kids, 24 were tested in the fall, in September. 3 were at low risk. And then when we tested them again in the winter, in December, instead of 24, now we have 23. We lost a kid someplace or moved. Same 3 were at low risk. And that's why it shows on the shaded area 0.5 increase. The reason is because in the fall we had 21 kids, and in the winter we had 90. You see what I'm saying? That's why it shows that small increment. But the 3 kids that were low risk, they were still low risk. Now let's look at the kids that were high risk. Okay, let's look at 6th grade. 24 kids were tested. Again in September, 16 were considered high risk. And then when we tested them again in the winter, in December, only 9 were high risk, which means that 7 kids moved from high risk to maybe low risk. Do you see? Does that make sense? So there was a movement from, we moved 6 kids, because remember we started in 16 that were high risk in September, and in December when we tested them again, only 6 were high risk. The 7 left from 6 to, from 9 to 16, the 7 moved to low risk, and some of them, they might have moved to core. Does that make sense? Okay. The next page, the third page, is now comparing winter, December, or last year, to May, or last year. Remember the second page, it was from September to December. The third page, the one we're going to go over, is from December to May. Let's look at 6th grade, because we were picking on that one. 26 kids were all together. We tested 23, and 3 were low risk in the winter, in January. When we tested them in the spring, in May, that same 23, 7 were a low risk, which means that some kids move up. We made progress with those kids. Right? Now let's look on the other side. These are the kids that are really high risk. 6th grade again. We tested 23, 9 we consider really high risk in the winter, in January. When we tested them in May, 11 were considered high risk. That means that 2 kids moved down. Okay, so that's how you read this. This is the assessment that we give 3 times during the year, which is the one that teachers use. That's the one that they use most often to make decisions. So teachers, to make decisions about kids, they look at an assessment that they give several times during the year, so that way they can monitor the progress. The yearly state test is only given once a year. It's one shot at a specific time in that student school year. This is given 3 times, fall, winter, and spring.
So the test results that were put out in the newspaper weren't these?
No.
So these are just based in the school?
Yes, these are the ones that are, that's why I gave you this. These are the ones that we call formative tests, because they help us every 3 months to figure out, like, if Antonio is at this level, is he making progress in 3 months? And if we need to do something else with Antonio, because this group that Antonio is in, is not making the progress, then we might have to do something else. So that's the one that gives us a better idea where the kids are throughout the year. The state assessment is one shot, and that's it.
So are these tests given the same way that the state tests are given? Like, are they the same same testing situation so that we can, when the state tests come out, they can compare. This is not their usual score, this is what they usually score during the school year.
Any of the teachers want to jump in on this?
I can kind of answer that. The easy CBM, you can either take it online or there's also a paper pencil version of it. So we've already done our assessments for fall. So I've given my students vocabulary assessment, and they get a Common Core state standard assessment, and then a multiple choice reading comprehension, which is like 3 pages of text and 20 questions. So they're kind of similar, but it's not like you take the whole class to the computer lab. You can do that. I find it's just easier for me to give them paper and pencil, here you go do. So.
I think too, the biggest piece of us using this testing 3 times a year is to differentiate what needs to happen for individual students. So Antonio touched on it with if a kid is maybe not making the grades that you're expecting from them from fall to winter, and you see those results in the winter, then you can modify the grouping of kiddos that he or she is with in that reading instruction or in that math instruction, especially when we have multiple grades that are able to do walk to read, which is, I think, the biggest piece that we use this for, is to make sure that the kiddos are in the right place for the accurate and direct instruction that they need during their reading times.
So this is where you can regroup, like, Antonio is in this group and he's not making progress. Because even within the 3 months, teachers sometimes they use monitoring assessments, so you don't have to wait 3 months to figure out if Antonio is not making the progress. Sometimes they do every 6 weeks, especially for the kids that are high risk. We don't want to wait 3 months and then figure out that you were in the wrong group. You know what I'm saying? So this is the data that teachers use. They rely more because it gives you different markers throughout the year. We take into consideration the state test, but understand that the state test is only given once a year. Teachers use what we call triangulate data. They use these assessments, they use the OGS, and they also use their own assessment that they give in the classroom, like the unit assessment. And from those 3 points, what we call triangulating the data, then teachers get a sense of where the kid is at. So what gets reported only is the state assessment. It doesn't get reported because districts do different types of assessments. That's why it's not, if you go to another district, they might not use this, or they might use something else.
Okay, so I get all that, but so what we're getting flagged for is not the way the teachers are doing the assessments, it's the state testing. So the reason why I asked that is there a way that we can prepare our students for the state testing now throughout the year to prepare for that state testing, so when it comes down to what we're being judged on and what our teachers are being judged on, what our staff is being judged on, the students are prepared for themselves. This is what is expected during this test, so that so the kid can utilize their knowledge to the best of their ability instead of doing one type of testing and different testing over here. I'm not saying cheating or anything, I'm just saying this is the environment you'll be in, this is the type of question, this is how you are expected to answer questions for this test later on. And it's a practice for that setting so they're not under stress.
So I think that what we need to figure out is, looking at the state risk test that we're doing, is to figure out what are the things that we need to do based on the state assessment, based on what we know here, and based on the teachers' own assessments that they do at the end of the unit, is to figure out what are the areas in which we need to have our kids stronger.
I think too, a really simple way to go about that, and you can also talk to your homework teachers or, you know, any of us to, what are some other strategies that will be really successful that we can work on at home. I really strongly feel that one of the biggest strategies that's easy to accomplish at home or at the library is allowing a child to sit in front of the computer and doing an educational, I'm reading and I'm answering format. So I think what happens so often is that all of our kids are so used to either having the computer be something that's entertaining them or that they're engaged in a game-like situation. So finding some sort of learning tools that we can find online or you know, at the library that's really just them being able to calculate or formulate an answer and then be able to choose that answer. That practice is really, really helpful for kids. So it's kind of them being able to retrain themselves with the association of what a computer is so that they can really sit in front of it and be able to read, answer, and use it as an educational tool instead of just an entertainment.
And we're also, to piggyback off of that, EO and I are trying to come up with a good agenda for like a math night where we have parents come in, we show you some of the curriculums being done in the classes, we have teachers share some of the work that they're doing, and then we can show you how you can then back us up at home. And that helps a lot with that environment too, is that then there's no surprises. And they've been working really hard to get their kids ready by doing some of these, the dibbles and that kind of thing, so that kids are used to, I'm sitting in front of a computer doing a test. And so we'll continue to work on that throughout the year as a community. So you guys can go and say, show me what you are supposed to be doing. And that's such a great activity because that is so hard. It's hard for me because I use the computer for my entertainment too. And so to sit and actually like read through my emails and do answering, like that's such a great activity. And I really, like that's a no-brainer. Put in my listserv. You know, like here's an activity you can do with your students. So thank you to Casey. And then just the more information that we can give parents about what to expect, then you can be prepared to help your kids. Because it is sort of this, it is.
I wasn't given anything like
right,
this
and
is
you
what
need
your
it.
kids are
Right.
expected to do.
Right.
So that way at home I can say, hey,
Right.
this is what you need to do. That they can't
Totally.
do this, they can't do
Absolutely,
that.
because you need that. And I think we were talking at the meeting about the math and just having parents, I mean, I was trying to help my child with math, and I was telling him something, he was like, well, that's not how I'm supposed to do it. And so he was showing me the different way, and I'm like, right, yes, the new math. And so I think just more information so that you can walk your kid through those action steps. And it helps everybody feel more comfortable with it. So we're going to work on math nights, just doing some more curriculum nights with parents, giving out some tips. I know the teachers are always willing to talk to you about ways that you can help just back us up at home. And then we'll work on some of that testing environment, sort of like easing that fear around it. So they go in and they're like, we can do this. And I know they really work on that in their classroom. So that's a great.
You have your hand first and then.
Yeah, did the formative tests reflect the same fluctuation in test scores as the state test at the end?
That's what we want to go over.
And
That's what we want to compare this and then compare the state. So that's what I'm leading to, so that way people understand the different assessment, and then we can start saying, okay, does the test that we do 3 times a year, is it telling us the same picture that the state is testing?
yeah, was there a disparity between the two tests? Did one show a fluctuation and one not show? The formative not show? And then also real quick, were the formative tests part of the investigation?
That's what we're going to go into. Okay? Señora.
Yo tengo una duda.
Sí.
Los niños se están hartando cuando van a hacer las primeras evaluaciones de lo que van a hacer es una evaluación o nada más se las aplican y ellos ni cuenta se dan.
¿Cuál evaluación? ¿La del Estado?
Están
Are you going to want to interpret this for them, or do you want to wait for them for interpreter? Do you want to
You
question
do the whole thing.
Okay. So do the children know when they do the first evaluation that this is the evaluation, that they're going to do that, or do they just show up and do it and don't know? And Antonio asked, which evaluation are you talking about?
¿Está hablando de la evaluación del Estado o la evaluación de los exámenes que tenemos aquí adentro de la escuela?
Or the internal school evaluation?
Usted ahorita nos explicó cómo se hace la de
El interno.
octubre, las 3
So
evaluaciones.
you were just explaining just how to do the internal, the October, and the 3 evaluations.
Ajá, mi duda es, a los niños se les dice, oh, vamos a hacer una evaluación, o nada más los llevan a la evaluación y ellos ni cuenta se dan, nada más.
I just want to know, do they tell the kids ahead of time you're going to have an evaluation, or do they just show up and do it without knowing?
Any of the teachers want to answer that one?
Yeah, I definitely tell my kids, we're doing the easy CBM. We've been doing assessment. I mean, I'm still finishing up a math assessment. They're getting assessed a lot, so we're trying to get them in groups, so we want data so we know where everybody is. So we're doing an easy CBM vocabulary assessment today. And we're done with that. It might take 1 or 2 days. We're going to do oral reading fluency. So yeah, they know there's different pieces of it. I'm explicit. We're going to do this today. It might take 2 days of class time in reading. Tomorrow we're going to do the Common Core State Standard one, which is like 25 questions. And it's taken a few weeks. I don't know about everybody else. I might still be assessing. I'm close to being done, so we'll have all that fall data for me for easy CBM, really shortly.
I have them in my bag right now. I'm sorry, Julie. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on Vin's comment, which is that I would say overall, most students feel really comfortable with doing easy CBM because they've been doing it for so many years. So I know like my group of 5th graders this year didn't even say 2 words. They just sat down, they're like, okay, let's get started. And that's because they've been used to them, they've had them multiple times already. So I think that they're more comfortable with this, and it's kind of more of the dialogue in their world, and it's in their classroom. I don't think that there's ever really a stressor with this, and it doesn't, it takes a long time to deliver, but the kids aren't taking tests for 4 weeks, so.
And it's not a pop quiz. It's not so much, easy CBM today. Who can I catch off guard? It's you want the data is going to give you information about where you can strategically put kids.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, surprise.
And it's not ever worded in the way that we want to, it's really just do your personal best because we want to see what you know already at the beginning of the year. So, yeah, it's not ever worded in the way that it's like a hammer down.
I have a question for you or any of the teachers. Just from my own curiosity, how much time do you spend typically testing kids to assess them for grouping?
I would say for the first 2 weeks of school, I personally don't spend any more than 35 minutes a day on it. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think that we get the best results from kiddos. I also don't think that expecting a child, even in 6th grade, to sit still for 40 minutes is, you're getting the best out of them. So I would say no more than 35 or 40 minutes on a daily basis.
For about 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I don't know if, I also personally don't like doing it back to back, and that's why it takes so long, and that's why we're still correcting them right now, is that I think it's really important to vary when you're testing, so every other day or every, a day and then 2 days and another testing with the easy CBM. I just don't think it's fair for the first, or for any length of time for a kiddo to sit in silence and do a test.
And then 3rd grade is a little different because 3rd grade isn't required to do easy CBM, so dibbling takes a different sort of timeline. But it's, you don't go into the lab, they have to, but yeah, in general, if we're good, we're usually done with our readings, fall assessments within 2 weeks.
Okay, so the next that I'm gonna go is, we're going to start looking what Aaron was asking. And it is the page number, so we pass this with a nice chart. And we're going to go to this one that it looks a lot of information, and I want to walk you through. And this is again the same assessment that is given 3 times a year: September, January, and May. Okay? So this is 2 years ago, 2011, I'm sorry. Let me,
last one.
2011, let's go to the last page, because I want to walk 2 years ago. Not this last year, not 2012, 2011. And remember that Dibbles is K, third grade, and ECCBMs is 4th through 8th grade. So let's look at first grade. Okay, you see what it says first grade on the left column? Yeah?
Yes.
And on the top it says DIVOs and ECCBMs. The next column, it has the winter status. So this is the data in the winter that we collected in 2011, in January of 2011. Okay? Let's look at second grade. In second grade, you see where it says intensive support? You see where it says intensive support? Yeah? In intensive support, it says that 8 kids were in intensive support, or what we call high risk. That was in January. Right?
What grade are we in?
Second grade. What it says intensive support. Intensive support, second grade, you see that there are 8 kids. Right?
9.
Then when we tested them in the spring, in May, if you look across, 6 kids stayed on high risk or intensive. And 2 of those that were intensive moved to some risk. So we look at the kids that were the lowest, which is 8 in December and January. And then in May, 6 stayed really low, but 2 moved up to some risk. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when you're reading across for the intensive, it shows how many people, how many of the kids stayed at high risk, how many moved to.
You see how 6 stayed high risk?
Oh, okay,
There were
that's
8,
on the other side.
and then 2 moved to some risk, moved from high risk. So they had a 25%.
So reading across, it's
Yeah.
sustained kids
Yes.
from that, okay.
So if you read it across, then to the left, it says student making adequate progress. Only 25% made progress. And those are the 2 kids that moved from high risk to some risk or low risk. Does that make sense? Okay. And then let's look at your strategic kids. These are your strategic is some risk or low risk, however you call it.
Some risk.
There was 1, and that one stayed on the same. That's why it has at the end, it has 0 growth. Right? You following me on this one? Yeah? Okay. Now look at the core support. These are students that low risk. They were 10, and the same 10 stayed again at the same level, low risk. That's why you had 100%. But then when you average the 25, the 0, and 100%, you average it divided by 3. That gives you that in that grade level, 63% of the kids made adequate progress. Does that, you want me to go over it again?
Because why would you divide it by 3? Is that the season?
No, 3 is because we have 3 groups of kids, the intensive, the strategic, and the core. And if you add the 100% and the 25%, and they find the average between those. So that means that in that grade level, only 63% of the kids made adequate progress.
I have one question. So
Yes, sir.
these kids who are in the second grade, they're now in the fourth grade.
Now they're in fourth grade.
Okay,
Exactly.
so are,
Exactly, because it was 2 years ago,
okay, okay.
right? They were second grade 2 years ago, now they're fourth grade. Okay, but I want to bring data from 2 years ago so you can start seeing. Okay, so if you look at kinder, 79% made adequate progress. I'm looking just on that column on the left because that's when we summarizing everything. In kinder, we can say that 79% made adequate progress. In first grade, 51% made adequate progress. In second grade, 63%. In third grade, 63%. In fourth grade, only 20% made adequate progress. But remember, this is from winter to spring. And you can see the rest of the grades. Okay? So now let's move to the next page because I have the page before. Because yes.
I would like to say that the statistics here on core support should not be averaged in because they're already in the top and they should stay there. So the fact that they have a high percentage of adequate progress doesn't have any meaning. And so we should eliminate those and just look at the ones who are below grade level if they make progress.
Yeah, that could be another way to do it.
Well, the one thing that I would say to that is that the test is getting harder as the year goes on because we are expecting those kids to make gains over the year.
Yeah,
so if they're starting in core and finishing in core, they are making progress.
And also, I think you misspoke when you said that they average up those percentages.
Oh, it's,
you know, like if you look at second grade, 63% is 12 out of 19 as your sample size making progress. It's not about averaging up all those averages. That's just showing, so if you show 100%, it shows that core kids stay core.
Stay core.
That's all. It's not a part of the third, it's not part of the 4%.
Okay. Fair enough.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, so let me move into next year, last year, because that's the one that we want to see if there is a correlation with scores dropping. Okay? And again, we're going to look from, do you want to look for from fall to winter, or you want to look from winter to spring?
Winter to spring.
From winter to spring. From January to May, right? So if you look at not the page next to the last, but the one next to the last, which is the first page that is different than the other. Okay, this says on top, it says 2012-13, winter to spring benchmark data. This is on the top. Okay, so let's look at, you got it? Anybody? Okay. So let's look again, let's start with third grade. In third grade, you see that there are 6 kids that are in intensive support, high risk. In the winter, there were 6. Third grade. In the winter, there were 6, and in the spring, these 6 stayed the same, high risk. That's why it had a zero growth way on the other side. If you look at the strategic, some risk, there were 3 students, 2 moved to high risk, and 1 stayed the same. And if you look at your core, there were 7. 1 kid moved to some risk, and 6 stayed at grade level. And that's why you have that 38% that made adequate growth. And what we know is consistent is that kids, when they start in their first and second, that's where they make the most growth. That's when they learn to read. And the higher you go in grades, the more difficult the work it becomes. And the data, it's a little bit different. It goes kind of like this. So this is the data from this assessment from the internal assessment that we have in the district that is given 3 times a year. Okay? Now what we're going to give you is the data that, look at the other one. Yes, this one. What we're going to give you is the state data. This is the state data that, this is the summative assessment that is given once a year. And it has a window, and before you can do it, give kids 3 times. Now you can only give it 2 times. Este año que pasó 2 veces se pagó nada más. Lo podían tomar 2 veces nada más. Este año que pasó lo podían tomar 2 veces. Ya. Pasó 2 veces nada más.
Twice, and so this year
Hace 2 años lo podían tomar 3 veces el mismo examen.
2 years ago, you could get the same exam 3 times.
Yes. Por ejemplo, si la primera vez no lo pasé, entonces, si la primera vez no pasé el examen,
If they pass it the first time?
if they didn't pass
They
it,
didn't pass it the first time, sorry.
then I knew that I have a second chance, that I can take it again. And if I still didn't pass it,
Sorry.
see that? So let me start with one language. This is for hace 2 años, si la primera vez no lo pasé, lo podía tomar en enero, y si no lo pasé, pues no me preocupaba mucho, porque si no, lo puedo tomar en marzo y ya va a haber 2 meses donde voy a aprender más. Y lo voy a tomar otra vez a ver si lo paso.
So 2 years ago, if they didn't pass it, like for example, if they took it in
Y
January,
todavía si no lo pasaba,
they didn't pass it, I could think,
pues
well,
no
they
me
could take it
ponía
in
en
March, and I
pánico
would
porque
just
decía,
stay 2 months till
pues voy a esperarme ya casi al final,
But
ese
now
periodo
if
de
they don't
tomar el
pass
examen
it,
lo puedo
that's
tomar
way
una
too
tercera vez.
And then I could, if they didn't pass it again after this 2 years ago, if they could wait on to the end and give it a third time.
Hay estándares académicos que el niño debe cumplir hasta el año.
So there are academic standards that the children have to meet up to the end of the year.
Entonces, si él tiene que hacer un examen en enero, él no ha completado.
So if you decide to do the exam at the beginning, it's not done, the year isn't done.
Entonces, van a calificar al niño como un niño que no es competente para la calificación.
So the child is gonna look like it's not competent.
A nivel o es bueno. Porque debe determinar el currículum.
Because in my opinion, that's not good, because they should have to finish the curriculum.
Y al final, hacerle la evaluación.
And then give them an exam at the end.
En mayo, si les van a dar los otros, se la den en mayo. Están ya terminando el currículum.
So if they're gonna finish in May, I mean, they should have finished the curriculum by the time they get to May. why did you get this bad score? Why did this happen? And they said, well, because we still haven't gotten to the topics, to the subjects that the exam's going to deal with.
Es donde queda mi incógnita. Entonces, ¿cuál es realmente el trabajo del maestro? ¿Educarlo y enseñarle? ¿O nomás sentarse bajo detrás de un escritorio o alrededor de los niños?
And so my question is like, what is the job of the teachers? Is it to teach them and teach them what they're supposed to, or just sit behind the desk and watch them do this?
Lo que pasa es, lo bueno sería que ese examen se diera al final del año.
So what happens is the good thing would be to have this exam at the end of the year.
Eso sería lo correcto.
That would be the best.
Pero la cuestión es de que el Estado
So the thing is that the
nos
state
da una fecha de que
gives us a
ya no se
date.
puede dar el examen y es aproximadamente el 20 de mayo.
That gives us a due date so that we have to do the exam by an estimation.
Entonces, pues los maestros hacen lo mejor que pueden, tratan de enseñarles lo más que pueden, de modo que cuando tomen el examen, cuando menos tengan un poquito de entendimiento
So to give them the exam,
necesario
they have
para
not
que puedan contestar las preguntas.
so that they can understand it.
Pero eso es porque en otros países el examen se da al final, no en medio.
That's because another countries think of the exam.
Y es que eso es mejor, porque así se da uno cuenta como padre y el estudiante también se da cuál fue el conocimiento que ha tenido en la clase.
Because that's good because then the parent can become aware and the student too, what did they learn throughout the
Entonces yo
year?
estoy en desacuerdo, entonces todos están calificando.
I don't agree with how we are
Están haciendo
evaluating
el conocimiento a los niños cuando todavía no cumplen el currículum.
I don't understand how we can evaluate the children when they
Todavía
Eso
no.
debe de cambiar, eso es algo de lo que tienen que empezar a
This
trabajar.
has to change. It has to start.
Esto es lo que necesitamos hacer, que el Estado cambie, porque el Estado es el que nos da a nosotros nuestros, y si no examinamos a los niños,
They said if we don't evaluate the children,
la escuela, si no tiene un cierto porcentaje de que los niños tomaron el examen,
so if the school doesn't
la
have 10%
escuela es afectada.
it's
Por eso cuando tenemos unos padres que,
so eso pasó that happened in school where they
well, I mean, there are some parents that they say, you know what, I don't want my kid to take any exams, and the parents have a right to that. But also understand that those kids that do not take the exam will affect the overall score of the school. So it doesn't help kids not taking the exam. The state penalizes the school because that's what I'm saying. That's why I say this is important. Este examen lo tenemos que hacer porque es el reglamento del Estado. Por eso tenemos otros exámenes que nos dan información que podemos usar más, mejor.
Tiene que tener a los maestros también capacitados para llevar a cabo eso y que nuestros alumnos, al tiempo de que son evaluados, no salgan esas calificaciones o estos puntajes, porque
so they have to be ready and trained to take this test, and if our kids are getting these scores, if they're not.
Usted fue maestra.
You were a teacher.
Yo sé que fui maestra y el tiempo que está explicando ahorita para mí es el peor.
And so the system that you're describing is like the worst.
Porque yo cuando evalúo a ellos les digo, ¿saben qué vamos a hacer una evaluación?
Because when you
Pero
tell
no
them
quiero
when
que
you
se pongan
evaluate,
nerviosos
are we going to
porque
we're
quiero
going to
saber
and then
qué
they
es
go
lo que
nervous.
aprendieron y en qué les tengo que regresar unos 4 minutos para que queden bien mi conocimiento.
And so then, entonces, por favor.
Tengo yo que regresarme
So then I have to go back
para volverlos a enseñar para que ellos no tengan ese déficit.
to teach them again, so that they don't have that knowledge of.
Y eso
Puedan continuar
es lo que los
a
maestros hacen.
That's
Eso es lo que los maestros hacen.
Bueno, usted cree lo que los maestros hacen, pero realmente creemos que sí lo están haciendo.
So you said that the teachers doing that, but do we really believe that they
Yo
are?
puedo decir de entre los maestros que han pasado por mis hijos, cuáles realmente sí están trabajando.
So I want to know if the teachers that are evaluating my children are really working.
Porque yo he revisado en algunas ocasiones el archivo de mis hijos.
Because I've seen my child.
Y se supone que deben de ir evaluando, se deben de ir progresando.
And so they should be making advances.
Y llega un tiempo en que tú no revisas, bueno, ¿qué pasó? Y
we're not moving
Y
forward.
no hay tampoco un récord de qué fue lo que trabajó.
Por eso es
En
bueno
esta
tener la
línea.
conversación con los maestros, decir, le puedo explicar de esto. Y los maestros, la mayoría de los maestros, 99% están dispuestos a sentarse con usted y
And that's what you can always ask the teachers to explain
esto es lo
this
que,
to.
esto es
99%
lo
of
que el
them
niño
sit
va
down and
bien,
explain it.
esto es lo que está teniendo dificultades, esto es
This
lo
is
que
what they
estamos
have to
haciendo. Y esta es la conversación que se debe tener.
Could we allow for translation? I'm sorry, could we allow for translation? You guys are...
I was going to say we either need to talk on a text facility.
So what I'm saying is this is a conversation that parents can have with their teachers. I know that 99% of the teachers, most of the teachers are willing to sit down with their parents and say, you know what, this is what the student knows, this is the level that they're at, this is what we're doing, this is how you can help us out. Can I have anything?
Go ahead. I think you were before.
Well, I had a couple small questions lumped together. So the state sends these tests, correct? They don't send people to mediate these tests, right? So why aren't all the schools given a time frame to complete it in, as in the same month or even like the same 2-week period? Like distribute or have the kids take this test the first week of May. And then every school, because last meeting you said that schools test at different points in the year. How is it fair to compare a school who tested in October when the kids haven't taken the test yet, learn the material yet, compared to someone who did take it in May, where they have all those months of learning to do the summit test? That's not, the test scores are not going to be equal. Either they all need to be in October or they all need to be in May to be equal. So when you're comparing test scores on here with the district, this isn't equal. Because not every kid has the opportunity to show what they've learned during the year.
To take it at the same time. What some schools do is that you might want to say, you know, these kids that are poor, that are grade level, let's see how they do in March. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And see how they're doing. Because if I'm a kid that I'm tested in March and I make, I might want to take it again in April to see.
Yeah, but in October, none of the teachers have had the chance to do 50% of the curriculum, to even get them 50, 60%, whatever, to get them to meet. There's no way you can learn that. Especially with the assessments that they're doing and doing all this other work to get ready for the year. There's no way they can learn it that early in the year to show their proficiency.
And I think that most schools are trying to test the latest possible.
One thing that I would add here is that it's the highest score that counts. So back when you had 3 chances, if you took it, I don't think anybody here ever took a test in October.
No.
But if you took it in January because the teachers were sure that you would meet, but you did not meet, you would have had another chance, and that's the score that counts, your highest score. And now with 2 opportunities, same thing, your highest score counts. But a change for this year is that once you meet or exceed, if you meet or exceed the first time, you're done. You don't have a second chance to do better.
So when are the testing for King this year?
The testing for King, the window will open again from the window will open again from November, December?
For K5s, K8s, it'll be January, not before January.
Not before January?
And when does the window close for?
Usually about the 3rd week of May. It's about the 22nd. I don't remember the exact date for this.
So when will parents find out when these tests are taking place? For this year?
Yeah,
Every
we'll
year?
do that strategically with the teachers. I mean, I want to put it off as long as possible, but I also want to give, because they can take it twice this year, give a little bit of window so those students who don't know can have another chance and that there could be some interventions. But we'll go ahead and let you know all that information. We'll put it, in the listservs, we'll put it in the letters home, so you all have it. Yeah, absolutely.
And this will be the first year that you get it, because.
No, not, that's why I'm asking now instead of,
Right.
we just took a test today.
Right.
Anybody tell me?
There's always notifications.
Yeah, early spring, but we'll definitely send home a lot of notifications so that you can ahead of time what's going on, and then we do want to give ourselves a little window, like I said, so that we can get kids a little bit of intervention and get them back in.
I share Rafael and Lily's concern about the test, and I'm equally confused, even though I'm myself a teacher and actually administer those tests at a different level, the high school level. What is, and I mean, it calls a lot of things into question for me. It's confusing. The thing that I'm finding most troubling, and this is not to find someone to blame, because that's not the point of this. I'm more worried about the current state of kids' education right now at campus. The AYP data that's collected by teachers in the classrooms, that's used for assessment and grouping, doesn't seem to me to have much correlation with the state tests. And I don't know if that's reflective of the state tests, which it could be, and I have no doubt that there are pieces out of there. But it worries me. I find that troubling. I think that, one thing that hasn't been said, and I'm just going to say it now because we're running out of time, is that, again, my son has had a great experience here. I have loved every teacher that he has had, and I think he's learned a tremendous amount. But these scores are incredibly troubling. No other school in this district has scores this low. I've looked at scores nationally. There aren't many schools nationally, as a matter of fact, any, that have scores like single digits. 7%, you're talking 200 kids that are meeting benchmark standards, the state standards. I'm really worried that there are some skill gaps that might be going on. And I think there have been some choices that have been made in the past, like to pull math coaches or to place FTE in the arts rather maybe in really firming up academics. I'm wondering if consideration has been given by PPS, given this dire nature of these scores, into bringing in a math teacher, not to somebody to supplant our very fine teaching staff, but they are already working at maximum capacity. When I left here on Friday, I saw the 1-2 teachers. It was 5:30, and they were going in to meet. They're all working their butts off. They need an additional staff, and we don't need bureaucracy and numbers. What we really need is a specialist, a teacher, a math teacher, who can come in and help assess these kids, find out where they're at. So parents like us that are confused by all this, they can go in and say, look, your kid is doing fine. Or, yeah, this group we've identified and we're going to bring them in. And not just load in some coach that's going to be a transient member of the staff that you have to push in an odd ways and interrupt this instructional time that is already necessary. We need an additional FTE. Yeah, we've got lots of bucks. It's true. But you know what? That money has clearly not been spent well enough. This is not acceptable for any school. No. And I know you care about kids, so what are your thoughts on maybe bringing in one extra FTE for King's School, at least for 1 year, to troubleshoot this problem?
Those are the things that we're looking at.
Who is
Thank
you.
I am.
Anyone else that we can talk to? Because I know that other parents would be supportive of this idea.
I think that the more you can do for state funding of schools.
I agree. That's
if you think about in the last 10 years, more than 10 years, we've been cutting. It has, in the last 10 years that I've been here, it has never gone up. This is the first year that actually is a little bit better. And that's why we bring in some other things. And these are the challenges that principals, sometimes they find themselves. I'm working in a school that they say, the parents say, we want more electives. We want more music, we want things like that. And then you have a group of kids that are not making. And then you say, like, what do I do? Where do I put this? You have a group of parents that they want their kids to take more electives, to have more choices. And then you have a group of kids that are struggling. And these are sometimes the very difficult decisions. And this is that sometimes the principals get attacked. And it's a...
I totally agree. The state funding is deplorable in Portland. In Oregon, as a state, we don't fund schools. It's a shame. And I realize that a lot of these things happen really when it comes right down to it, is that we're all scrabbling for a little bit of cash that's on the table. I totally understand that. Also, I know that principals have tough choices to make, but I want to suggest that as a parent at King's School who's been an activist at the school for 6 years, who fought hard to keep the school open, and now in trouble, our kids harmed. Did I do the right thing? My own son is a third grader here. I would suggest to you, I know that all schools are struggling, but point out another school that has scores like these in this district. No other school. King's School is unique in that we've got some potentially big problems. These are kids that if they don't meet their skill gaps, if they have skill gaps now, they're going to drop out whenever they're in 10th grade. We know Portland Public's record as far as kids of color and dropping out. I mean, I know you have to look at the big picture. You're the administrator guy, right? You can see, like, okay, I
No,
need the
we're
money.
saying, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely, it's absolutely.
There's not many of them. There's like, what, 50? But you know what? Those are 50 kids, 50 human beings, our children. And I can't help but say that we really need to just put precedence over that. We need an extra FTE in here or some kind of specialist in here permanently on site.
I'm working to get the FTE, and I'm really working, appealing to everyone to bring a math coach to help with the math. Right now, I'm going to be very honest, we're struggling. We're struggling because the money doesn't. We're struggling right now. We need to adjust for the changes right now in the whole, what we call full adjustment. Classes that are really high. Most likely we're going to have to ask the board to help us because we don't have enough money. Those are the discussions that we have in the district office because I have some classrooms that right now have 32, 33 kids, and that is unacceptable.
I know, again, I'm a teacher. 32 or 34 kids is unacceptable, but 32 or 34 kids who are meeting benchmark and doing okay is less of a worry than 20 kids out of 22 kids who are failing.
What I can tell you, and it might not be much, but I can reassure you this. I know the teachers that you have over here. And I just met with them earlier. And you know what? They're gonna do, and we're gonna do everything that we can to turn this around. And the phrase that I say, we shall overcome. And we will. Because we have the people that are committed to this. This is very hard for them. This thing has been emotionally hard for them and for everyone. But we're going to come through. Because I know, I hate to say a phrase, well, no. I would say, I have seen their hearts. And their heart is in the right place. And they're going to give these kids the best that they can. For us to move forward, and we will. That's all I can offer you. And I think they will agree with it. And as long as we have that, we have the heart, and we have the mission that we have to do better for these kids.
So no on the FTE?
It's gonna help us with that route. There is, we have to learn some things in here to do that. And we're gonna have to do it. And we will do it. So here is the data, and what you were saying, yes, there are some things that we need to figure out how we have to do better. Okay? That's why I say this is not about negotiating. This is not trying to find somebody that we can blame. This is about all of us coming together and saying we can do a lot better. Because by blaming them, you destroy the sense of community. Because we will be stronger when we collaborate, when we work with each other. And you can go to the platform, you yourself can say, you know what, These are really good teachers. And you know what? Together, we're gonna look deeper into this. Hey, what can we do better? How can we be more precise? What are the things that we need to do in our practice? And that's why I say that we shall.
Does he have do you have a question? Oh.
Well, I just wanted to know, she was asking, can you get an FTE in here? And he was saying other.
Oh, no, I did have a question also about, I just saw your hand, I just wanted to make sure. On this, on here it says that, that under law, Portland Public Schools can release test scores as public information. My question is, why wasn't it submitted to parents across the district before it was submitted to the media?
So,
because the letter that we received was dated the same day it was released to the newspaper. And I mean, we didn't have any way to prepare ourselves. We didn't have to communicate. I mean, we didn't even prepare ourselves with this knowledge before.
So I'm going to give you that chronology when things happen, and you guys jump in if I'm.
Well, I have the date of the letter that you sent us, and it's the same date as it was given on the website.
Because kids get tested from January to May. We do not know, we as a district, we do not know the summative data. Teachers might have a sense, you know, I didn't pass a test. But the data, when I was a principal, I didn't know the data until July, when it came from the state. We finished testing in May, but the data didn't come to me as a principal to look how everybody did until around June or July, the end of June or July. Am I right, Joe? So the data, really, we find out kind of at the same time. Because the state embargoes the data when it makes it public.
But so, I mean, but the newspaper had it on the date that you sent that letter. And is that the first time that the results were released?
Certainly. So my name is Rob Cowie. I manage the communications office for Portland Public Schools. And so what happens when state assessment results are released by the state? Usually they come out about the third week of August. This year they came out early in September. That information is released to the media about a week in advance of when it becomes public. So it's under an embargo. Reporters get it, they see all the data statewide, they see all the data for all the schools, and they're holding that data. But you know, they have a chance to comb through it, do their own analysis. In many cases, they will say, "Whoa, we want to go talk to some teachers at a school, whatever, had a big jump." And that's what happened this year. It was under an embargo. The day that that information was released publicly, the Oregonian began looking at the test results here at King and began asking questions about the changes. And at that point in time, they became aware that an investigation had been undertaken. 6 months in prior. And in Portland Public Schools, we don't release investigation results when they result in discipline or when results are inconclusive. So that's why there had not been information publicly that an investigation had been completed. When the Oregonian asked for the investigation report and the notes, as a school district, we are under the obligation to turn that information over to them at that point, well, promptly, under the records law. So we did that. What we tried to do was to inform staff and parents that that information was going to be released, but the Oregonian was able to print that information online before we could notify the King community.
So is there a way for this,
Yes.
what would be this year or this coming year to, I mean, I know it says by law they are given this information, but let the school district let the school deal with the information how they need to before releasing the information to the press. So that way, in case something happens, or like our numbers increase, we do a good job, we want to celebrate it first,
Yeah.
like yay us, and then we can release it to the media, instead of them saying, what do you feel about the increase, and what increase, we haven't got that information yet.
Yeah, no, so that would be, the best case scenario. It would certainly be most respectful to you, the families, and to the staff of King. It's not always the way we get to operate, unfortunately. This is, a world where, communication is instantaneous. In some cases, we can negotiate with a reporter, and reporter, a reporter may, if he or she chooses to respect an embargo, may provide, that kind of leeway. It's not guaranteed, doesn't always happen like that.
Rob, can I address that a little bit more? Our research and evaluation department in PPS actually does produce some reports earlier. Antonio referred to some of these. We produce a preliminary summary, generally beginning of July-ish. We don't have final data from this day yet, so it is preliminary. Those we always make available to the principal. So, and then it's up to the principal's discretion how or when to share that. That's going to be slightly different data than what the state releases that's published in the Oregonian, because there are slightly different rules on which kids are included in the calculation. ODE has a couple different definitions. It's a slightly different rule for which kids are in these numbers that you have here versus which kids are in the state report card formula. So there's always little differences, but those numbers generally are available. You have the disadvantage of not having an administrator in the building over the summer to do that, and so I think that was part of the issue here. Yes. So Aaron will have access to data end of July this next year, before the Oregonian data is published.
And R&D also, I mean, you're probably aware, also sends your students' test scores home each August. So you should have received a letter that said, your student scored, this number on the state OATS test.
We had second graders last year, so we don't know how that's done.
Okay.
Rob?
So we're wondering for this next year.
So I'm gonna
Can I just say one more thing about this with parents? You guys should know too that for your individual kids, the teachers know right away. So those of you that have new third graders, at the day of the test, we can share those results with you individually about your kid.
And your child can too.
I'm gonna, Aaron, and then I'm gonna go to the last part of this, and then after that, I'll be more than happy to stay here longer if you wanna talk.
Okay, thanks. So originally I'd asked, did the formative assessments reflect the same fluctuation as the state test score did? I was wondering if you could answer that for me.
Let's look at one example.
And then, since Rob's here, if you don't mind, I was wondering how was the complaint received? Like what form? And then how do we decide who does investigations like this? Is that part of the regional administrator's contract, or how's that assigned?
Well, I'll let Antonio answer the question about the complaint, and I think Antonio and Joe can talk about how complaints of testing improprieties are handled, and why this actually received a higher level of scrutiny than we normally do respond to complaints of testing impropriety.
So before I jump in, Joe is the one that you want to say anything before I jump in terms of what the state rules or procedures?
Yeah, so to answer the second part of that first, normally Portland we have about a dozen or so testing improprieties that our department investigates each year. Most of those.
Were you part of this investigation?
I'll get there.
Okay, I'm sorry. The last meeting they said it was only 2. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure.
I'm just going to give it a little context, and then I can answer that. Most of those are individual students. They're things like, and most of them are fairly innocuous. Nothing at all malicious. They're just accidents, things that, like a kid taking the wrong test. When we learn that that happens, that's a problem. It's a problem. It's not a major problem, but we need to report that to the state. We oftentimes will need to ask the state to invalidate those test results, and then the student can use their second opportunity to test again. Last year, for example, we had one student who used an iPhone or a cell phone during the test. That's not allowed. We had to invalidate that test. And so most of the time, our department will work with the principal and with the test coordinator in the school to investigate those. Something like this, where it was a much larger scale, the allegation came in about essentially the entire school, or all of the student body. And because King was a focus or priority school, we were particularly concerned at the central office level about what that meant. And so we decided at that point to get, and because it was a written, I don't know if you want to talk about how it came in, it was a written complaint that came in. We determined that getting HR involved, which is not what we normally do for investigating cases, but we have the option of doing that under the state rules. And so HR and Antonio did the investigation. We certainly had some input and answered some questions about testing, since our department are the experts around the testing.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Did the formative tests also reflect a fluctuation in scores as the state test did?
Let's go into that.
Since the formative tests inform the teachers throughout the whole year, maybe they would show that.
Before you look at this, I will just say that this handout actually talks about the district doing an external investigation.
Well, we're not going that. Oh.
No, I just want to say a deeper analysis of that will be part of that investigation. So Antonio will look at the data here, but a more rigorous analysis is forthcoming.
So that's new information. There's going to be an outside investigation?
I'm sorry?
That's new information, right? There's going to be an outside investigation?
It's an investigation. So let me finish.
Okay.
Let me answer your question.
Okay.
And you're here representing who?
I'm a concerned parent in the Jefferson cluster.
But you don't have kids here in King, right?
I have a child in the Jefferson cluster,
But
in
you don't have a
PPS.
kid here in King, right?
No, I don't. No, it goes to Beach. Third grade, just
Third grade, okay.
if you need to know.
No, I just want to, so that way.
Is that relevant?
Because, no, the reason I'm saying it is because you post a video on Facebook, and I want to make sure that parents know that if you've been taped, that.
Yeah, if you guys want to know, I started a YouTube channel called the School Board Awareness Consortium. It's the SBAC. It's a YouTube channel I've been putting a lot of parent testimony about different problems that we're having, and this all started out of the Jefferson Cluster rebalance. So I'm a parent in the Jefferson Cluster, and I feel very firmly that we should address the PPS. If they address us as the Jefferson Cluster, we should speak back as the Jefferson Cluster.
It seems really negative, your last post. I was really upset. I couldn't sleep all night.
Great, we should talk.
It was very, very negative, and it doesn't help. You don't have a child that goes to King. I don't understand why you do this, and parents are so worked up and negative about it. What's your motive? What is your motive of being here?
I'd love to talk to you about that.
No, I think I deserve an answer right now.
If we want to take meeting time up, yeah, I'd totally talk to
And I
that.
actually don't want to take meeting time.
Okay, great.
Because I want to refocus back on what I call my community here for, and my parents and my teachers who are here giving up their time. So please refocus.
So I'm going to go into the action here to make sure is because last time that you were here, it was on Facebook, and I just want them to know so that way they didn't think that we paid, that we, the district, paid them and put it in Facebook. We don't have anybody here from the district paid, so I just needed to make that clear. So let's look at the data. And the best way to look at the data is from the winter, we're talking about last year, right? From the winter to the spring. Okay? So let's look at the state data. So we're going to need these two documents. One that says 2012 winter to spring benchmark data. And this one that gives the state data. To see the two assessment, there is a level of comparison. Okay? So if you look, let's look at reading in 2013. That's this past. You see third grade, that is 38% net. Do you see that on this display? Now look at third grade over here in this other assessment where we give 3 times. If you look at third grade, actually matches 38%. So the assessment that we give 3 times a year, it says that 38% of the kids are making adequate progress. And the assessment from the state, it says that 38% of the kids met.
That's in third grade, right?
That's the third grade.
But the next grade.
No, that's what I'm saying. There is, that's what I'm going, because it's going to be different for each grade level.
Yeah, but for the same year, in fourth grade, it says 48%, the state testing in 2013 is 63%. So, I mean, for third grade, it happened to be the same number, but the other ones don't.
It are different. So let's look at fourth grade. Fourth grade, the internal assessment says that 48% of the kids made adequate progress. The state test in fourth grade in reading says that 63 met benchmark.
So, my question, this says making adequate progress, which means that they went from maybe not necessarily quite meeting, but moving up a little bit, meant they're making some progress, which, I mean, this says meeting benchmarks. So the difference would be that, I mean, our benchmarks maybe a little bit higher.
Not
Is that-
necessarily.
I mean, that's what our benchmarks higher because we want more from our kids, or the state levels a little lower to give kids an extra advantage. That means
you want to answer?
You raise an excellent point, and a couple things just to make more explicit is these 2 tests are measuring different things. The state assessment measures an entire year of instruction in reading for that grade level. The EasyCBM or the DIBELS measure actually measures a much narrower slice of reading or literacy, or a much narrower slice of math, targeted at that time of year for instruction for the kids. And so we would hope that there would be a good correlation between these 2 sets of scores. We know there would never be a perfect correlation. The 38% happens to come out
by accident,
just by accident, right on.
Yeah.
We would never expect to see that very often. We would hope that both of them would be upward trending or downward trending at the same time. And then, see, I have one other comment.
But, however, you can say that in both of them, 38% is low. Regardless of how you cut it, whether it's the assessment inside or the state assessment. 38% of third graders in the state meeting is low, and 38% of in the assessment that we have internally is low.
Well, on this one, on the packet that you gave us, this is 30% are making progress. That is different than 38% hitting benchmark.
Absolutely.
Like I said, are we setting higher standards for our students here because we want them to do good? I mean, this is just making progress. This does not say whether or not on our test that they're hitting benchmark. Some are, I mean, you know, like, it doesn't tell you where the benchmarks are in correlation.
It would be more accurate for what you're asking to just look at the percent of students who were at core compared to the percent meeting on the standard. That's still not a perfect correlation because, again, they're assessing different things, but that would be a little more accurate than just who's making progress. We could look at Oaks data and see what percent of kids moved from very low to low, low to nearly meets, low to meets, and that would be a little bit more of an apples-to-apples comparison with the progress measure on the EasyCBM and DIBELS.
Because like on this from the state testing, the third grade in 2012, 85% are meeting. Next year in 2013, the 63 would be the same in theory if the kids were pretty much the same, would be the same grade level, I mean the same kids. That's what I'm looking at with the kid trend, and that's what I'm seeing is that going down per kids, because third grade in 2012 is not the same kids in 2013.
And what Antonio has done is pulled some data that we had available to be able to show you what we have. For what you're talking about, we have the theoretical ability to do a student-by-student analysis over time and do a better correlation. We don't have the manpower to do that for every school in the district. So that's a challenge. That's not something that's readily available. And the purpose of these reports that Antonio is sharing is to guide our teachers in where to place students, which students are struggling, and generally, are we making progress with this particular reading group or whatever the focus is.
But it's this one that we do internally be a better judge of what we're able to do than this, because it doesn't really say what is being taught.
No, because they're measuring different things. The state assessment is looking at a summative of the entire year of what should be taught in third grade or fourth grade. And so that is a good measure, if given at the end of the year, for an entire year of instruction. They're both appropriate, they're just for different purposes.
Okay, so the last thing is about 7, and like I said, I'm more than happy to stay here if you have more. This is a letter that we're going to be sending out to the community. I talked to the teachers earlier. I also want to let you know that under the Release of Information Act, the Oregonian has asked us for individual student data. We're going to erase the names for the students, but we have to provide, am I right?
Yeah, so it's public record, and we are obligated to turn that information over to the Oregonian. I don't know if you've discussed this so far, but we'll also be mailing to parents your students' test scores over the past 3 years for students who took the test. So we'll be sending that to you. We will not turn over the information to the Oregonian until we've made those scores available to the families first. So back to your earlier point about the sequence of the release of information, particularly as something as close to home as your school, your students. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to have that information same time that it's going to the Oregonian and before it winds up online or in print. And again, I really want to emphasize, as Antonio said, we will not provide student identifying information to the Oregonian. That's something we will not do. Your students' names will not appear in the paper. Do we have any questions about that?
Or ID numbers.
Or ID numbers, right, absolutely, yeah.
Anything that is identifiable by a number or anything. So I want to go over this. Señora.
Estamos hablando de notar el nombre del estudiante. ¿Van a poner el número de matriculación que tiene cada estudiante?
Are we going to give the ID number?
No.
Porque no dan el nombre, pero si dan la matrícula, pues ahí se habla del nombre. Entonces queremos estar 100% seguros que no vayan a anular el nombre de los estudiantes.
Definitivamente no, por eso es. Pero la otra vez de que no nos podemos negar, que por ley, si nos piden la información.
No, in this case, no, because we're not giving identifiable data.
Porque no les estamos dando los nombres de los niños ni el número de matriculaciones. Lo único que estamos dando es qué resultados sacó en el examen. Y no podemos negárnoslos, estaremos violando la ley.
Well, I can tell you exactly what we're giving them. We're going to give them the grade level that the student tested, the actual test score, the subjects, so reading or math, whether the student was at King or another school when they earned that test score. Because what they've asked for is 4 years of data for a student who tested at some time during the 4 years at King. And we're going to give that for up to 3 testing attempts per student for 4 years of data. That's all we're giving.
So I just have one question. So we're talking about kids that's in the 4th grade up, right? Third. The ones that just start, not our kids, because our kids.
4th grade up.
fourth grade.
Because
I have to
third grade.
restore
Right,
that.
you're
Because our kids just got into third grade, but I do have, like, Renata's the fifth and
Right.
stuff like that. So to be kids into the fourth grade, those are the, okay.
So,
Entonces, ¿qué va a pasar con los niños cuando lleguen a otra escuela, por ejemplo, de octavo grado?
So what happens
Van a
when they
ir
go to
a
a
otra
different school?
escuela.
They go to eighth grade,
Ellos
they
se
go
van
to
a
grade.
llevar entonces colgado la fama de que vienen de una escuela que no es honesta.
Are they gonna have, be hung by this
¿Cómo van a usar esa
bad
manera?
reputation that they came from this dishonest school that had this happen?
eso no tiene que ver, no, eso no puede cambiar en la otra escuela. Bueno, la cuestión es que la cuestión es que es difícil de contestar esa pregunta porque la mayoría de los maestros acogen al niño de donde venga y a nivel académico que venga. So what I say is that that's a difficult conversation to answer. What I know is that every teacher will take that student wherever they come, at the level that they come in and work with that student. Most of the times, the teachers do not know from what schools they came from, unless they look in their file. But you know, when I was a teacher, I didn't care where they came from. When they came to my classroom, I was there to teach them, and I was going to take them however they came. I had kids that were in different scenarios, and you know, kids are kids, and we're going to teach them, and we're going to do the best that we can, and that's the majority of the teachers who do their job to make the kid feel safe, nurtured, and a good learning environment. And that's my teaching.
Antonio, can I jump in as well? I want to say that we did an investigation in response to a complaint. That investigation was inconclusive. It happened many, many months ago. There was no indication that there was any dishonesty happening here at the school. The step we're taking right now is we're asking for someone outside Portland Public Schools to come in and look at the change in test scores over many years. We've talked at an earlier meeting and today about many conditions that were different in the testing environment in King across the past 3 years. We want to see, and we want to have someone help us understand what is going on inside these numbers, and to what extent did the changes in those in the testing environment contribute to the changing results. And that's going to be something that's going to help King move forward. It's also going to help other schools in Portland Public Schools understand how should testing be conducted so that the students at King, whom we all believe are capable of accomplishing great things, how can that testing accurately demonstrate their level of learning?
So if you read the second paragraph, for instance, because of the change in test scores from year to year, that need to support staff at King and all the schools with clear guidance on testing and your input, we have decided to initiate an independent analysis to learn more about what contributed to the test scores increases and then decreases between 2011 and 2013. This review will include analyzing Portland Public Schools and the Oregon Department of Education guidance on testing practices at the school, the test score data, and other factors, such as staff and students changes from year to year. The other thing that we also did this is because we conducted the investigation. We didn't find anything. And in the last meeting, people said, well, if you conducted the investigation, it's obvious that you're going to come up with this. So by bringing somebody to do an analysis from outside, then we added another level of transparency. Because part of that, I remember, and even was on one of the social media that says that this is the first time that I investigated something like this. So that was part of the reason that also we want to bring somebody from outside. Because then from there nobody can say that, you know what, you guys made this up or anything like that. And this person will help us not only with this school, but in other schools where there is a sharp increase and a sharp decrease to find out what are the factors that contribute to this. So this is not just for King, this is for us as a system to figure out what are the things that can help us create the best environment for kids for testing, and how we can best support the staff, the teachers, and the principals in us being more consistent. Because the testing conditions from school to school vary. Some are testing in January, some are testing in May. So I'm saying, so the other thing that we can look also at the data, what happened to the kids that tested in January? Did they tested in January? And they didn't pass, but they tested in March, how many passed? So it will help us kind of break it even farther. So that person, we don't know who that is. We asked the state doesn't have people that they send to us. They gave us some names. Like one of them is a professor from Portland State University. So it's not somebody from the state that will come in. It's not representing the state because the state doesn't have people for that purpose. We asked the state to say, hey, do you have anybody in mind that might be good, that is independent from us, to add a level of transparency too, and to help us analyze that data a little bit different with a different set of eyes that are different than ours. And we haven't landed on that person as far as I know. We had some leads. With the person, we want something that is fast because the staff is really good. And we want them to be in their best game. And right now, there is this thing hanging over all of us. And for us, it's about how do we create the best learning environments for kids, where they want to come to school, where they nurture, where they get an education, and for us to be reflective, what are the things that we need to do there. And that's what I want to leave you with. And I'm more than happy to stay with you. 7 o'clock.